Paragraph of the 26th chapter of the book of Chronicles, the book of Divrei Hayamim. Lemach lekot, lisho arim, lekarchim, Meshalmayahu ben Korah, Mibnei Asaph. The division of gatekeepers. I read this verse to you yesterday when I had it open to the wrong place. The division of gatekeepers. Korach, from the family of Korach, Mishalmiyahu, son of Kor, and the son of Asaph. It's always interesting, as we've noted many times in the Tilim, in different places, where we have people from the family of Korach who are mentioned, and they're mentioned this way. And right, it's telling us that just because in the past they have this ancestor who's not a great guy doesn't mean that they cannot serve in the temple, doesn't mean that they cannot become righteous and serve God properly. Continuing, Ulamishamayyahu banim Zachariyahu Abachor Yediel Asheni Zavadyo Ashishi Yatniel Aravi, the four sons of Mishalmiyahu, and continue Elam Achamishi Yehochanan Ashishi Eliho Einai Hashvi'i. So the 7 sons, and now we mentioned Ula Oved Edom Banim. We had Oved Edom, as mentioned earlier. He housed the ark temporarily when it was unable to get to Yerushalayim. And we mentioned he's got many. He's a person of prominence, presumably. He was hosting the ark and trusted. And he has a number of large family. Oved Edom Banim, Shemayahu Abachor Yehozavad Asheni Yoach Hashlishi. V'shachar haravi'i u'netanel hachamishi amiel ashishi yisachar ashvi'i pu'ulatai ashmini kivercho Elohim. So he mentioned 8 sons, and it tells us that he had 8 sons because God blessed him, and it's impossible to not think that he was blessed. It was mentioned back in the chapter when it talked about having the ark, that the ark being in his house blessed him. And of course, the ark blesses you if you're a blessing. The ark doesn't necessarily bless you, as we learned in Raiders of the Lost Ark, if you are not a person who deserves to be blessed. Continuing verse 6, Pasuk Vav. V'leshemaya beno nolad banim hamim shalim levet avihem ki giborei chayil hema. And one of his sons, Shemaiah, had a number of sons who were very, very strong. They were leaders. Because they were men of substance, men of strength. B'nei Shemaiah, Otni Urifael ve'Oved el Zavad Echav B'nei Chayil Elihu Usimach Yahu. These are the names of the sons of Shemaiah. Kol Ele B'nei Oved Edom Hema Uvneihem V'Achaim Ish Chayil B'Koach Lavoda Shishim Ushnayim LaOved Edom. All these sons of Oved Edom, they and their sons, their brothers, strong and able men for the service. 62 from the family of Oved Edom. So we see here he's a person of great prominence. He's a person who is blessed by God and has a very large family as a result, presumably, of him hosting the ark and being a good guy. Continue verse 9. Ulamem Shliyahu banim v'achim b'nei Chayil Shmonasar. Mishmael and his sons and brothers were 18. Ulechosam min b'nei Merari banim Shimrei Harosh ki lo haya v'chor v'yisimeu avihu l'rosh. Chosa, from the family of Merari, right? Gershon, Kat, Merari. We've said it a number of times. 3 sons of Levi and their different families. He had sons. Shimri was the chief. He wasn't the firstborn, but his father designated him the chief and the head. Maybe it means because his oldest was a daughter. Maybe it means there's something special about him. We do not know the reason as to why, but so we're told, because it's an exception. In verse 11, Pasuk Yud Aleph, Chilkiyahu Hasheni Tevalyahu Ashlishi Zechariyahu Aravi Kol Banim V'Achim Lechosa Shlosha Asar. Told the names. The other ones, Chilkiah, Tevelia, Zechariah, and they are of a family. They are 13. La'ela machlekot ha'shaorim l'rashei ha'givarim, mishmarot leumat acheim l'sharet bebeit Adonai. These are the different families appointed to be gatekeepers by their chief men who worked in shifts and ministered in the house of Lords. Pilu goralot kakaton kagadol leveit avotam l'shar v'sha'ar. And as we've been told, with all of the other systems that were put into place, and we're going to have it listed again as we've had in the past. There was a lottery of some sort. It wasn't weighted. Doesn't matter if you were from the biggest family or the smallest family. Everybody had an equal chance of being the first pick, as it were. Vayipola goral mizracha l'shalmiyahu zechariah v'no yoetz b'seichel epilu goralot v'yitzei goralot tzfona. The lot for the east gate fell to Shalmaiah. Then they cast lots for Zechariah, his son, and the lot came for him to be for the north. L'Oved Adom Negba Levanav Beita Asufim. Oved Adom at the south gate, and for his sons they had the vestibule. L'Shupim V'Lechosa L'Ma'arav Imshar Shalechet B'Mesila Olah Mishmar Lumat Mishmar. So now for Shupim and Chosa, the west gate, with the Shalechet gate, which was ascending. It was Olah. Right, in each watch, corresponding to each watch, the Mizrach Levim, Shishalis Fona Layam, Arba Lenegba Layam, Arba Lasufim Shnayim, at least 6 Levim at the north, 4 were daily, at the south, 4 daily, and 2 by this vestibule in the middle. Leparbar, Lema'arav, Arba, Lemesila, Shnayim, Leparbar, the colonnade on the west, 4 at the causeway, and 2 at the colonnade. Ela Machlakot Hasharim Levnei Karchi Levnei Merari. So these are the ones from the families of Korach and the families of Merari. So different Levites' families. Merari is the son of Levi. Korach is not one of the sons of Levi. Korach is from the family of Kahat. But again, there's always the emphasis to give the family, the descendants of Korach, and the obvious lesson that we mentioned before from there. Continue Pasuk Chav, verse 20. V'alevim achiyah al otzarot beit ha'elohim ula otzarot ha'kadoshim. The Levites achiyah, right? He was over the treasury and over the house of God, and the treasuries of dedicated things. So he was the accountant, as it were. Bnei La'adan, Bnei Gershoni, La'adan, Roshei Avot, La'adan, Gershoni, Yechiel, the sons of La'adan, the sons of the Gershoni belonging to La'adan, the chiefs of the clans. Bnei Yechiel, Zaitam, V'Yoel, Achiv, Al-Tzrot, Beit Adonai, the sons of Yechiel. Mentioned is also part of the treasury. La'armami, Li'tzari, Lechevroni, Le'uzieli, from the family of Amram. Yeah, Amram, right, also a son of Kahat, with most famous children, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. Shvuel ben Gershon ben Moshe, Nagid Alot Sarot. And we're told about the grandson of Moshe, who was in charge over, he was the chief officer of the treasuries. We don't hear so much in the future about the children of Moshe. They weren't slaves in Egypt. They weren't at Har Sinai, according to some understandings and commentaries, and they don't become seemingly prominent people. Here we see a grandson of Moshe. I don't think it's a direct grandson because it would be many generations later, but a descendant of Moshe is the chief officer over the treasury. Ve'chav le'Eliezer, Rechavia v'no, V'Yishayahu v'no, V'Yoram v'no, Zechri v'no, Shlomit v'no. So, and his brothers, Eliezer, Rechavia, Hoshea, Zichri, Rich Shlomit, some of the names we've had in the past. Hu Shlomot, Ve'achav, Al Kol Otzrot HaKadoshim, Asher Tish David HaMelech, V'Roshei Avot L'Sorei Alafim, V'Amelech V'Sorei Atzava. This was Shlomit and his brothers, and they were in charge of the treasuries and other things that were dedicated to the temple, that were dedicated by King David and the other families and heads of clans. They were and army officers, min ha-milchamot, min ha-shalal, iktishu l'chazek l'veit Hashem, all the things that they were victorious and won in battle that had to be known and counted, and what they were, that the army and David dedicated to the temple, dedicated to God. V'chol iktish Shmuel ha-roeh Shuel ben Kish v'Avner ben Ner v'Yoav ben Tzruya kol ha-maktish al-yedei Shlomit ve'Achav. And we have a list. It's not just the stuff from David. There was also stuff in history that had been donated in the past, dedicated in the past, and it gets from Shaul, from Avner, who was Shaul's general, of course, Yoav, who was David's general, as well as other men in the past who had dedicated items for the future temple or for the Mishkan or whatever it was at the time. So Shlomit and his brothers were in charge of it. Continuing verse Chavtet 29, Litzhari Kananyahu v'anav l'mlacha chitzonal Yisrael l'shotrim l'shotfim. From again the family of Yitzhar, we have Hananiah and his sons, and they were clerks and magistrates for affairs outside of the temple, perhaps stuff related to building, and maybe it's the stuff related to other major projects. Not exactly clear. We have different sort of understandings from the commentaries, but it's not stuff specifically that's been dedicated for the temple, but other stuff that's needed for public service, for building, for fixing the walls, whatever it might be. Lechevroni, Chashavia, Ve'achav, Bnei Chayil, Elef Ushvameot, Al Pekudat Yisrael, Me'ever Le'Yarden, Ma'arava, Lechom Lechat Adonai La'avodat HaMelech. The Chevronites, the family, the people lived in Chevron. Chashvia and his brothers were capable men, 1,700 of them, supervising Israel on the west side of the Jordan. in all matters of God and the service of the king. L'chavroni Yiriyah harosh l'chavroni l'toldotav lavot b'shnat ha'arbaim l'malchut David nidrushu v'yimtza bahem giborei chayil bi'azri Gilad. The Chevronites, Uriah was the chief of them, and they were investigated in the 40th year of David's reign by the different clans, and they were found to have no problems. There were no skeletons in the closet. They were found to be good men, even all the way in Yazri, in Gilad, which is far away. And we see here, by the way, this it says in the 40th year of the reign of King David. David, we're told, back in the book of Shmuel, David reigns for 40 years. So we've talked about this being towards the end of his life, preparing for Shlomo, giving Shlomo the advice, creating all of these systems. And so here we see, at least here, it's being told to us that this is the end of his life. Ve'achav, in verse 32, the final verse of the chapter, Lamed Bet, B'nei Chayil alpayim shvameot roshei avot ve'efkidem David HaMelech al Ruveni v'agadi v'chatzei v'chatzi shevet ha'mashi l'chol davar ha'Elohim udvar ha'melech. And his brothers, 2,700 chiefs of clans, David put them in charge, not on the west bank. We had the 1,700 on the west bank. Now we have the 2,700 on the eastern bank of the Jordan River. David puts them there to be in charge of all matters of God, all matters of the king, all matters of things that need to be done. And these are for the tribes of Reuven, Gad, and Menashe. That's who these families are, these people are supposed to be guarding. So here again, we've seen it in the past over the last number of chapters, the system that is created by King David to create this holiness, a system which is equal weight and equal foot. Doesn't matter which of the families of Levi, which from the families of Kohanim. And it shows, right? Gatekeepers aren't just guards. There's holiness attached to their job. We have different places where we've talked about gatekeepers with the books of Nehemiah, the books of Ezra, even in the first temple. Even before the first temple, we have Shmuel opens the doors of the house of God all the way back in the book of Shmuel. And so here we have things like gatekeepers and people who are in charge of both the accounting. It's for the temple, it's sacred work. I don't know if it's promoting, just making sure that everything is used their best. It's all understood as sacred work, sacred because it's part of the divine work, the building of the temple, and it's also something that's responsible. It's a responsibility that we have to our people to make sure that when they're paying their taxes, when they're doing all of the things that they are doing, and we know they're taxed very, very heavily, probably too much by King Shlomo, we have to know that it's not being wasted. There's not just a waste and stealing. And so this work that these Levium are doing, even though it's accounting and different things of that sort, of understanding what there is, what there isn't, it's understood as being related to the great benefit of the Jewish people, benefit of the temple, and thus it's seen as very much as holy work, as it is still today for people who run charities, Gabbai Tzedakah, and different things of that sort, is seen as still today as holy work that is for the sake and the responsibility of the community.